All right, guys, coming to you from a house that we just completed the spray foam on this house. And we've spray foamed the entire envelope, meaning this spray foam is going from the walls all the way up to the peak of the roof line, which means I've got a conditioned attic. Everything is part of the air-conditioned envelope. Now let's rewind time mentally for a second. My very first house I built as my own builder, not working for someone else, 15 years ago, I used spray foam. Now this happens to be closed cell in this house. At that time I used open cell on the entire envelope. And through the years, as I was kind of researching, understanding construction, learning more about building science, I felt like spray foam was going to do an amazing job of doing all of my air sealing needs. So on that house, I used standard house wrap. I paid attention to the details from a waterproofing perspective, but from an air sealing perspective, I was honestly a little laissez-faire. I didn't necessarily tighten everything down. Sure, I caulked and sealed things and used flashings, but I was mainly worried about bulk water and not air penetration. So fast forward to this house, 15 years later, I spent a lot of time now on my houses air sealing. Let's review how I built this house. This is a Monopoly framed house, or perfect wall, depending on how you want to call it, where basically I frame the walls, and then when I frame my roof, instead of having my rafters over top of my walls, I clipped my rafters right at the wall line so that my zip R sheathing could go up the wall and then transfer right to the roof deck. I also have zip on the roof deck, which means that my entire envelope has this zip sheathing that's taped. And now I've got a very tight air seal on the outside of the house. Now I also use some really good windows. These are from European Architectural Supply. Very, very airtight. These are kind of European style tilt-turn windows. I've got a lift and slide that's really tight. And I've also paid attention to all my penetrations, not just from a waterproofing, but from an air sealing perspective. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to rewind time before the spray foam crew arrived. I'm going to do a pre-blower door test to see how tight this house was. And now that the spray foam crew is done, we're going to redo the test and see it. So today's build show, all about air sealing and whether that spray foam is really tightening my house, we'll find out. Let's get going. All right, guys, got a blower door set up, and I got the man who knows how to run the blower door. Ken, what's up, dude?
Going good.
So Ken, if you don't know him, Ken Allison is the Director of Training and Business Development with IDI, which is a huge insulation distributor. Ken, talk to me about what we are about to do here.
So you've built a great house. We're going to add foam to it, but it'd be really nice to understand what the building does before we ever add spray foam.
Right.
So we're going to go ahead and run a blower door test. It's just putting a vacuum on the building. That's all we're doing. And this is going to tell us how much airflow.
So just to remind you guys, this is a Monopoly framed house, meaning the full envelope has been air sealed with the Huber zip system. And then for penetrations that are sticking out, I just used some canned foam, kind of like what I would have done, 10 years ago. I didn't try to spend a bunch of extra time air sealing. I also have some really, really top of the line windows and doors in here. This is a European window and door package from EAS out of Boston. So I'm hoping we get a good number here, but we'll see. I need to get 3 ACH 50 to meet code. Usually this is getting done after drywall, but I always like to do it at this stage if I can, and this is a perfect time to do it. So with that being said, Ken, fire it up.
Well, we are going to only go with 2 holes out. You'll see it on here. We're expecting it to be tight.
Okay.
So let's see what we come up with. We're going to set it at 50 pascals, which is what we need for coding, for meeting code.
And by the way, Ken already entered the volume calculation. We need to know the number of cubic feet of the volume. And now as the fan ramps up right here, this is going to be our ACH, that's air changes per hour at this pressure reading. So it's ramping up. It's 21 pascals, 24, 26, and I'm liking where this is going right here.
This is a beautiful number at this point.
At this point,
we're already to 35.
We're just above passive house levels, not quite there. And again,
with no drywall.
With no drywall, and again, I didn't do the nth degree on air sealing. I just used canned spray foam on my penetrations.
So here we are at 50. Click the add-on here. So at 50, we're really running right at 8 air changes.
So
we'll see it go as high as 8.
So we're basically 0.8 ACH 50.
Yes.
That's a good number, man. I'm happy with that.
Show you something else. What we'll do is on here, we'll hit here for equivalent leakage area.
Okay.
more or less what you have, if you took all of the leakage in this entire house, you have 51 square inches or a 5-inch by 10-inch area.
It's not bad at all.
I'm testing houses that have 400 cubic inches, 800 cubic inches.
Yeah.
This is a beautiful place to start.
Not bad at all.
Now we'll go ahead and throw in some spray foam and see where we wind up.
Yeah, that's really the point of the video, guys, is closed cell foam on my walls and my roof line, my entire envelope, gonna change that number significantly, or was it all the things prior to that? So stay tuned, let's see what happens. All right, guys, so you saw my pre-blower door score, and we did well. The point of the video, though, is really twofold. Number one, I'm interested to see how much better I'll be once my closed cell foam is in. But I also want to encourage you to do all the important air sealing and not rely on foam. And this goes way back for me. When I first did a spray foam house probably 15 years ago, I did open cell foam everywhere, and I thought it was going to be the panacea. That's still when I was using sheet applied weather barriers on the outside. I really didn't do any air sealing on the outside. But on this house, I'm really starting to do what is my preference, which is now my second or really third house that I've done with monopoly framing. That's where my walls go right up and transfer into my roofs. And the zip sheathing is absolutely perfect for that because I can actually tape that joint between my wall and my roof sheathing with zip system tape, which means that now my envelope, this outside of the house, is nice and tight. Now there's another important thing I did on this house. It's a little different than on my house that I just finished, or I just got to this stage on. And that's this right here. This zip sheathing right here separates the garage from the indoor space. And as we look to the roof line here, you're gonna notice that zip system sheathing is going all the way up to the roof line for me. And the framers did a real nice job here of even taping that to the roof deck. You'll also notice right here that the zip tape is on, and then that 2x10, which is forming my ceiling joist, was put on later, and then we used some Spax power lags through that into the studs. So my zip system is complete. And let's look at it up here too. This is in the kind of outdoor water heater room. We're putting a heat pump water heater in here. Where we missed tape, we came back later and used some Proseco Fast Flash. That's what that pink or red stuff is there. And we also toothed it in at the ceiling line there because the framers, when they finished, forgot that tape. What that's doing is that's providing a really good air barrier between the house and the garage. It also gives me a backer to spray foam against. Now you could use other things for backers, and in fact in the past I've used thermoply or netting or things like that. But by doing this, I can do a good job of air sealing even before the spray foam crew comes. And that zip system sheathing is all the way continuous in the garage as we continue up to the roof. Now on the inside, prior to the spray foam crew coming, and to get that blower door score, let me show you a couple things. I'm gonna slide through the studs here. I used some canned foam on all the penetrations. Now this is just an electrical outlet right here that's penetrating into the garage, but that's typically a fairly leaky connection between the house and the garage. So I did it for the blower door test just with a little bit of canned foam. Here's this, and in fact, here's one that I missed, I realized later. This is the 220 wire running through into the garage. So we're gonna put a little canned foam in there. Let me show you how I did that. And again, this is not a perfect air seal. I don't like to rely on canned foam for air sealing, but knowing that I'm gonna have closed cell in here later, that's gonna do a good job for me. Now I also did the electrical outlets in here, and I tried to get anything where there might be some airflow coming through, like the top of these outlets, where the wires are. But again, this is only doing about 80%, 75%. Once the closed cell comes in here and makes a big 2-inch or 3-inch pass behind those electrical outlets, we should get a much lower blower door score, but we'll see. I'm not totally convinced what it's gonna be. Anyways, let's get into the spray foam job. All right, Ken, we're back. It's been about 2 days since we ran this last, and the spray foam crew did a great job. We did the full exterior envelope. They did all the walls with about 2 inches of closed cell. The roof line, we did approximately 4 inches of closed cell on the roof. I'm curious what this blower door result is. And remember, we were at what before?
0.82.
Which is a darn good score to begin with.
That's unbelievable for literally framing.
Yeah, pretty good. Now, what do you think is going to happen today? How much tighter do you think we might be?
I don't know that we will be, because you did such a great job in the beginning of getting all those details that I don't know that we're really going to see it get much tighter than 0.8.
I mean, there's not a ton of CFM to be gained, but that being said, Ken's got the blower door all set for us. The retro tech's ready to fire up. Let's see what our score is, bud.
All right.
50, set. Remember, this is our number up here. That is our Pascal rating. That's the difference in pressure between inside and outside. So we're at 14, 16, 20 pascals difference. It's interesting to see the fan motor is not very loud.
It's not, and you can also hear it go through that ebb and flow. The computer is adjusting itself because it doesn't want to shoot past 50.
Right.
It's just trying to come to 50. Oh, man. We're at 0.4 at 0.37.
Holy cow.
Whoa. 0.35.
Let it adjust here. Hang on. It's adjusting. We're zeroing in on 50 pascals. There it is. 0.32. Oh. Ken, that is literally the tightest house I've ever built without the use of air barrier. Check out my other videos about that.
This at 0.32.
It's coming back. 0.32.
At 0.32, man. This is at the framing stage.
Yeah.
We still have another air barrier to go.
That's right. That is a darn...
This is incredibly tight.
I'm really happy.
What the fan is telling us, it really wants us to put another one of these back in. That's how much difference we've done.
Let's do that real quick, and let's see if we can get that thing to hold at the right score.
So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to click on the fan, and we're going to make our fan look like what we're going to do here.
And now we're going down to basically the tightest ring possible on the fan.
To change from this, we have to go to a passive house blower door.
Yeah.
So we are as far as we can get at this point.
Which, if that score holds true, this would meet passive house standards for air tightness.
Absolutely. We are well beyond passive house standard.
That's amazing. Okay, let's see where we're at, Ken. I feel like there should be some Alex Trebek music going on in the background.
Oh my.
It's still not quite to 50.
It's pulling the air out of the house. We have to give it a minute to adjust. But that is correct.
That's right. This is set in exhaust mode, so it's exhausting out of the house. We actually might be slightly tighter than that.
We're 0.3.
Holy, it might even be a 0.29 when it's all done.
My word. We'll just give it a minute until it gets the air out of the house.
Look at that score. Ken, I want to do a jumping high five, dude.
This is outstanding, Matt. This is truly
let that
outstanding.
Balance, but it looks to me like we're definitely going to be below 0.3 air changes per hour at 50 pascals difference. That's
we can let it run if you want to talk about the framing, because what you did here is absolutely astounding.
So we did actually show that spray foam will tighten down the envelope, because we started with a darn tight number and we ended up with a crazy tight number after spray foam. But what spray foam can't do is things like this double stud over here. So for instance, I've got 2 studs. This is a wood-to-wood connection. So if I have 2 studs and there's a sheathing break on the outside and I don't have a piece of tape or a fully applied or a fluid applied weather barrier, if I have a standard house wrap out there, I could easily get air leakage between that if there's a sheathing break outside. But in this case, I did a really top-notch job of doing a fully sealed envelope. I've got that zip sheathing on the outside that's fully taped, walls all the way up to the ridge, which means that those areas, spray foam, I didn't need for air tightness. I was tight behind that. But any penetrations, any of these small areas, the spray foam tightness from 0.8 to, it's looking like we're gonna end up being like 0.27.
We are, it's slowed completely down, Matt. We are a clear 0.27 air changes per hour. We're talking 0.27 with an air barrier still to go. We're still going to have drywall, finish, paint, mud, texture, everything else going into here.
Yep.
So this is just an outstanding number.
Yeah,
well done, Matt.
That feels
well
good, man.
done.
That feels really good. That's a good number. I think the takeaway on this, though, Ken, ultimately is, look, spray foam will increase your air tightness, but you really need to pay attention to all those other details on the outside.
Yes.
First, from a waterproofing perspective, which I told a story at the beginning of the video about my first house of spray foam, where I really paid attention to waterproofing, and that's super important. But I hardly spent any time and effort on air sealing because I expected the spray foam to do that, which in that case, I got, honestly, a disappointing number for me. 3 or 3.5 ACH 50. On this house, I really paid attention to the air barrier, and then that spray foam was able to augment that. And on the air barrier and the waterproofing, the outside, the details I've nailed. The other thing I want to mention on this house, Ken, that's a little different than honestly any other house I've done, was I used all European windows and doors on this house that have a very tight seal, lift and slide door. I did as many fixed windows as I could. Where I have operables, I used European Architectural Supply tilt turns, which have a very tight seal on them. And that makes a difference too, I believe. Getting to that window package that's going to be a tight window package, those are a lot of penetrations in my envelope. So that made a difference as well. Any last thoughts on this?
Yes, from a building science perspective, the one thing I would add, and I'm looking forward to your video on this because this is your next video for this house, maybe not the next one, but at this point, a lot of people would say, you can't build a house that tight. Houses need to breathe. There's nothing farther from the truth. We need this to be tight so that we can control the air another way. And since everything today is about health, you have given whatever mechanical you put in here the absolute best opportunity to control everything in this indoor environment.
That's right.
So now you're on to your next step, which is providing fresh air for people instead of sucking bad air through building materials.
Yeah, and Ken, I've gone to really going to the top of the line ERV, HRV, which is a Zender unit made in Switzerland. I put that in my house. I've got one going on in here. It's bringing fresh air in continuously. It's distributing it to all the places in the house where it needs to. But ultimately, if the power goes out, just open a window, right? You can always open a window. There's always something operable that can open and ventilate. You can never go back, though, and close that window on that leaky whatever. And when we talk about air sealing, one of the things I always want to mention is whenever we air seal, we also bug seal, which means that when I have a really tight envelope, that's less penetrations for bugs to come in, for pests, for rodents, for cockroaches, for ants. All those things are getting sealed out as well if that air is not going to get in. So making a very airtight house, terrific goal for any house to have. And then we can lace in a good fresh air system. If we don't pay attention to air tightness, we're only going to get fresh air when the wind's blowing. And all those other times that fresh air could come in through those leaks and cracks, we're also getting bugs.
Matt, do you want to see how big of a hole we have left in the house?
That's right. We can convert it on the RetroTech, right?
Absolutely.
Let's do it. This is great equipment. There's other blower door manufacturers out there. This is my piece of equipment. I love owning this as a builder. I saw my buddy Jake Bruton buy one, and I said I should do that too because I saw him pre-testing all his houses. It makes a huge difference in pre-testing and understanding where the leaks come from. 2.7.
We'll get one more cycle down as it pulls the air out. There, it's starting to go down again. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to click right here where it says ACH, that's air changes per hour. And just to cover that real quick, what that means is when there's the equivalent pressure of a 20-mile-an-hour wind blowing outside, we're looking at having 0.2 air changes. If we sucked all the air out of the house and then paid to condition it again, that's one air change. So we're going to take it from air changes, and now we're going to go to equivalent leakage area. Equivalent leakage area shows us, Matt, we just went from 50 inches, if I remember right, on the previous blower door test.
Inches.
We are down to 17 square inches.
I mean, that's like about that big, right? So that's about the size hole in the total envelope on
3,000 square feet. We've barely got anything. We are literally at 17 flat.
Which is honestly about the same size as that hole in the fan, right? Pretty close to that.
Pretty close.
That's
4-inch square, basically.
That's a tiny hole. Ken, good stuff,
That's incredible.
Man. Good stuff.
Let me turn this off. Thank you, RetroTech, for the doors we use.
Yes, for sure. And big thanks to you and the rest of your colleagues at IDI. All the products we used here, the spray foam, the rock wool, all from IDI, which is a great giant supply house. They're not direct to public, though. They're selling to the insulators. But if you're looking for a great insulator, you can call these guys. They know all the good people in all their towns. And you guys are all over the nation, right?
Yeah, 59 distribution centers now.
That's amazing. You guys are huge. Guys, thanks for joining us. I think this was an important episode. I really wanted to get across the importance of spending the time and effort to air seal prior to insulation, but that also this closed cell foam, there was definitely a benefit to my envelope on an air sealing perspective with this closed cell foam. If you're not currently a subscriber, guys, hit that subscribe button. We've got new content here every Tuesday and every Friday. Follow me on Twitter or Instagram. Otherwise, we'll see you next time on The Build Show.